What's up, everyone? Paul here from the Hoops Crew to go through the round 13 recipient. They're not a winner. It's maybe harsh to call them a loser, but the recipient of the round 13 Nuff of the week. And this week, it goes to the Melbourne Football Club and specifically their medical team, who have cocked things up pretty badly this week. I was struggling for a while there. It had been a pretty tame week. No one had done anything outrageously dumb. And then to end the week, Monday's match, the King's birthday match between Collingwood and Melbourne brought about an incident involving Christian Petrarca, where he was injured and he played out a quarter, and then he eventually got subbed out. And you knew there was something wrong, but I guess the severity was maybe lost on a lot of us at the time. And then the medical report comes in today. And so we'll flick over here to the Wide World of Sports, who've kind of pulled together a piece here and kind of outlining the situation. He's undergone surgery for internal injuries following the loss to the Pies. And you think, okay, maybe he's, something small. Maybe he's concussed. Maybe there's some internal bleeding. Maybe there's, and not that these things are small, I might add, but of course there's, focus on concussion. Internal bleeding is the thing that can happen if you get hit just hard enough or just in the spot. But I'm sure he's dealing with some internal bleeding, because not only does he have that, but he's gone and cracked 4 ribs and has a ruptured spleen and a punctured lung. And I think some serious questions need to be asked of the medical team, because these are not small things. I've broken ribs before playing footy, and I have been chatting with some mates who are in the medical industry that work as paramedics. And when you've got broken ribs, it's obvious. Now, we've seen players play on with broken ribs. There's a history of this sort of behavior. We think about Cats fans, but we think of Dermot Brereton in the 1989 grand final and what he kind of played through. And there's plenty of players that have gone on with broken ribs over the journey. And that's one thing. It's not good, but that's one thing. But when you go and add broken ribs to a ruptured spleen and a punctured lung, alarm bells should be ringing here, because the guy was clearly in extreme pain. I have no doubt in my mind that the medical team had already identified that there was broken ribs, because it's very hard not to. And yet they persisted. They stuck with him anyway out on the field, despite every other sign saying probably a bad idea. We don't know how long he's going to be sidelined, as the article goes on to talk about. He's already undergone surgery, or will be undergoing surgery. We can see from the screenshot there, like, he was in a bad way. He was in a really bad way. It was obvious for all to see. The report came in from Tom Morris, maybe Tom Morris's Twitter account, because he's had a bit of a rough week getting hacked. But he's had surgery overnight. He sustained 4 broken ribs, lacerations to the spleen, and a small puncture of the lung. The extent of the layoff will become clearer over the next few days. It just should, obviously there was no avoiding the surgery here, but it just should never have gotten to this point where it's so controversial. It should have been a simple case of players injured, players got broken bones, players probably done. And then they go on to discover these other issues. If it's a small puncture, as Tom Morris talks about, maybe it wasn't immediately apparent, because maybe his breathing wasn't hampered in really obvious ways, considering the heavy breathing that is already going to be going on from an AFL player, the heavy breathing that's going to be going on when you're in clear pain. There's the natural physical responses that come with this. But it was just such a negligent approach from the club. So many more things could have gone wrong. If he'd have gotten hit again in just the right or wrong place, we could have been dealing with a really serious outcome here. It wasn't that long ago, when you really think about it. It was a different circumstance and it was a different time. It was a different injury, but it wasn't that long ago that we think of Tom Lonergan, for example, backing into the pack and kidney out, done. That was that. And there was serious concerns to whether he would survive. And the club didn't even send him back out to play in that scenario. He got seriously injured. He was off, and that was it. And he still nearly died. Like, there was a responsible approach, and it was nearly over for him. And unless I'm misremembering, but I'm sure he was done for the day. Christian Petrarca went back out there, and we understand that Melbourne are in a tricky spot right now. And as the report kind of goes on to talk about here, Jason Dunstall talking on Fox Footy, this is a massive, from the Melbourne perspective, if it's a serious injury, what is that going to do to the Ds as they try and claw their way back in the 8? And I'm sure part of that was in mind at the time. It's like, we can't afford to have our best player out. But you could have had him out for a whole lot longer if things had gotten any worse. If he'd taken that one elbow, that one bump, copped a strained knee when he was kind of head over the ball, landed badly. There's a whole host of different ways that he could have been struck or just, made incidental contact with something that would have, those already broken ribs, moved them into an even worse spot, and we could have been talking life or death. It's such a small margin for error when it comes to any part of life, let alone professional sport. And professional sport, as much as we love this game, it's just not worth putting your life on the line for, right? But they did it anyway. And so I think there's some serious questions that need to be asked of the Melbourne Football Club medical team as we kind of sit and debrief on this, because where did the decision making come from? And I think in the case of any club, and we can make this argument for Jeremy Cameron the other week, when obviously he nearly stole the game for Geelong, and we would have loved it if he won. But also the way he waved off the medical team. The medical team need to have the ability to veto any comments by coaches or players. They need to be able to put up their hand to the umpires and say, no, stop the game. This player is clearly injured, not interested in what they've got to say. If they're refusing, bad luck. I'm pulling rank here and you are out of the game. Christian Petrarca wanted to get back on the field. That's fine, but he doesn't have the understanding of what's going on to his body at that particular point in time. He will undoubtedly understand that something is wrong, but he doesn't understand the extent of the injury that he's got, because he's not a medical professional, but these guys are. These guys and girls are. And they've got to have the ability to pull rank. They've got to be willing to pull rank. And we've got to, as supporters of the game, as members of clubs, as officials and coaches and other players of clubs, we all need to be supporting the medical team to do what they are there to do and have no barriers to the completion of that job to its greatest extent. It's not okay for Christian Petrarca to be in the state that he's in for a whole other quarter of a match, to be playing under that sort of duress, unaware of just how serious that injury might be. It's irresponsible by the club. It's irresponsible by the medicos. There's so many problems here, and I really, really hope that the AFL investigates this thoroughly and that Melbourne cops a whack for it, because these sort of things are obvious. We're penalising clubs when they've done the wrong thing around concussion. And I think as much as this is not a head trauma thing, we could have had a serious injury here, a life-threatening one. It could still have been anyway. A ruptured spleen and a punctured lung, and no small thing, let alone the broken ribs. This could have been a lot worse, and we're lucky that it wasn't. But it's so obvious how to approach this stuff, and I don't understand how and why the right decision wasn't made. Anyway, that's where we're going to wrap things up for Nuff of the Week this week. Congratulations, Melbourne's medical team. You're the Nuffs of this week. Please, any medical team, any club out there, do the responsible thing. Look after your players. Ensure that scenarios like this do not happen again. Because it only takes one piece of accidental contact to an already injured player in that sort of scenario, and it could be a really dire outcome. And no one wants that. So why take the risk? That's enough for the week. Cats fans, neutrals, whoever's watching today, subscribe to the Hoops Crew, where we catch a whole range of awesome content, from post-game live to match reactions. We've got the Chaps Chat Cats and all the awesome shows that they do. I'll put up videos from time to time, some feature pieces about a whole range of different topics. I've got a few ideas in mind for this week alone. Check out all of that stuff. Subscribe to the podcast. Visit the Patreon, where you can get, by subscribing in the first place, you'll get 7 days of free, unlimited access where you can check it out and see if it's for you. And then it'll cost you up to $6 a month. That's the cost of like 1.5 coffees. To subscribe to our stuff, get early access and a whole range more. There's some awesome stuff there. Please consider it. Catch us on socials at the Hoops Crew. You can find me at Paul James Games. And until next time, remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you later.